We now come to the SNP spokesperson, Thomas Sheppard.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I begin by commending you, Mr Speaker, and in particular the doorkeepers for demonstrating by example earlier in the week the need to wear face coverings when moving around this building. I do hope that the leadership that was demonstrated by you might rub off on the government when it comes to looking at the procedures in this place and how we debate things. So I want to start by asking the leader where he has got to in his consideration of the recommendations of the Procedure Committee as regards remote voting in this place. And I think this is all the more pertinent given that the coronavirus pandemic is not going away. Indeed, it may well get worse before it gets better. We already have, in various parts of the United Kingdom, and particularly in Scotland, quite severe restrictions. These may intensify, and it may mean that many members are unable to travel to this place if they wish to follow the guidance of their local health authorities and their national governments to avoid essential travel. And it seems to me somewhat perverse to be in a situation where travel of members of Parliament has to be essential only because we choose to turn off the means by which we can make it inessential. In other words, if we have the ability to participate remotely, we wouldn't need to make journeys to this place. So, firstly, I want to know where the Speaker has got to in his consideration. I also want to ask about, will the Chancellor come and update the statement he made a couple of weeks ago concerning the continuation of support for businesses who are unable to trade because of the pandemic? His announcement about the Job Support Scheme only has relevance to those businesses which are able to start trading at a reduced capacity. It has no relevance for businesses which are told to close and cannot trade at all and have no income coming in. So when can we get a statement on that? And finally, Mr Speaker, on a completely different topic, I wonder if I can tease the Leader of the House to answer a question that the Prime Minister refused to answer, and that is that in May next year we have elections for the Scottish Parliament. If the Conservative Party and other Unionist parties are successful in that election in gaining a majority of seats in the Parliament, would he regard that as a topical mandate for the Union at that election?
Mr Speaker, first of all, there was a vote in 2014 of the people of Scotland who decided to remain in the United Kingdom, and the SNP at the time, under the leadership of Mr Salmond, as he was then their leader, a figure perhaps they don't talk about as much as they used to, for reasons I'm not entirely clear about. But nonetheless, there are all sorts of interesting things about Mr Salmond and Mrs Sturgeon in the papers currently, which I think people may want to pay attention to, and all sorts of conversations between them. Nonetheless, they don't like to talk about him very much anymore, and he said it was for a generation. Now, I know we've been talking about octopuses on Octopus Day, but a generation is longer than the lifespan, I imagine, of the average octopus. It is the lifespan of an individual. A generation is 25 to 30 years. It is a good length of time. And so we have had the referendum, and we won. The Unionists won. Even the Labour Party won in this sense. So I think it is something we can be very pleased about that happened in 2014. As regards proceedings in this place, it might be helpful if SNP members were more rigorous in attending to the details of the requirements of the rules. But leaving that to one side, we need to turn up to do our job. We are an essential service. And I think it's pretty wet, quite frankly, that we expect doctors, nurses, police officers, people working in supermarkets, we expect the cleaners in the House of Commons to come round and do their job, and we say we've got to stay at home because we're not willing to come. We have a duty to be here, our public duty. That's why we were elected. We were elected to be an assembly of the nation, not people sitting remotely throwing stones. There are facilities for people to participate in interrogative proceedings, and there are facilities for people, because of their individual conditions, to vote by proxy. But fundamentally, the business of the House needs to go on in the chamber of the House. Finally, on the Chancellor and updates, as I said earlier, we've already had 40 statements from the government during this period. The government is committed to keeping the House regularly updated on important policy